All right, so we've now gone through the 20 factors that impact your Facebook advertising success. And in some cases, I provide some specific actions that you can take. But now I want to go over just some general guidelines, a general approach and fixes that you can apply when running your Facebook ads. So understand that every single situation is going to be different. So appreciate the many different factors that are contributing to your success. I think far too often we think that there's a simple fix. There's a simple explanation for why we're not getting the results that we want. And the reality is we got 20 different factors that all contribute in some way. That said, don't obsess over every single one of these 20 factors. Except that some of these factors are completely outside of your control and there's nothing you can do about them. One good practice is to test. So know that the same approach isn't going to work every time. And I know, look, I've been advertising for a long time, so it's easy to fall into this routine. And we should absolutely learn from our past experiences, but know that there's a point when things do change, things evolve. So don't apply the exact same strategies that you've been applying year after year after year. It's going to change. So one of my least favorite questions is, should I do this? Should I try that? Yeah, try it out. If you wonder if something will work, test it. What works for one person won't work for all. So I often have people asking me if they should do something or if I do something. Well, that doesn't necessarily matter because my approach doesn't necessarily apply to your situation. So what works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for me. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all global, it works for everybody approach. So if you can, use Facebook's built-in split testing feature. It's a really good way of testing out different factors. You can also try out their dynamic creative or multiple text options when trying to test out and find what works best in terms of copy and imagery. But what you want to avoid here, and this is why, again, we don't want to obsess over all 20 factors. You don't want to water down your results with too many tests and say, I got to see what the best targeting is. I've got to see the best optimization. Got to figure out, okay, which placements. I've got to find the best copy and creative. And next thing you know, you've got a million different variations and a budget of $100 a day. That ain't going to cut it because guess what? You're not going to get sample size, right? You're not going to be able to properly optimize. So test one thing at a time, not everything at once. Know that you can't attack it all at once. Learn from your experiences. But you should experiment often, right? Have fun with it. I find experiments to be fun. In terms of acting on results, remember, you want to allow Facebook to exit the learning phase. So if you get bad results, if you can, make sure you're outside of that learning phase first. Because optimization isn't complete, isn't optimal until then. So you don't want to act too quickly on bad results if you can avoid it. There are exceptions to that. Like I ran into this recently where I don't even know what happened, but I spent kind of an insane amount to get a very low number of registrations for something that was completely outside of the norm, to the point where I wasn't going to be able to exit the learning phase anyway. So I was like, we need to just stop this and try something else. So there's a point. But beyond that, you should know, okay, if it improves tomorrow, will we still be able to exit the learning phase eventually? A lot of times people ask me, how long should I run something before turning it off or pausing it or acting on it? And it's really less about days and time. It's more about volume in that learning phase that you need to be aware of. So in terms of finding success, hey, this is what it all comes down to, right? Appreciate the challenges in front of you. Don't be overwhelmed by it, but appreciate it. And this is good not only for you, but for your client and higher up, that go into it with reasonable expectations. So explain those challenges to those clients, to those higher ups. Help them understand that some factors are simply outside of your control. And a client is often going to do this. They'll point to a competitor and say, look at what they're doing. Look at the results they're getting. Well, guess what? They may not have this. They may have different advantages that you don't have. And so that's a dangerous comparison. Find what works for you, and also find what success means for your individual situation. You can only define it for yourself. Try not to compare yourself to others too much. And set reasonable expectations ultimately for yourself and your client. If you're going into a situation where you know it's an uphill battle because of purchase intent, website traffic, no pixel, not a well-known brand, bad industry, on and on and on and on, make sure everybody's aware and have kind of baby steps, goals and expectations that you can build off of over time.